you doing?
I am well. How are you? Oh, I just realized I left my AirPods. That's all right. Can you, daughter, can you pass me my AirPods, please?
How you doing?
I am well. How you been?
I'm good. Busy. Just got done with one of my clients, and now I'm here.
That's what I was saying before you came. I said she'll be here. I know she had a session right before this. So you are busy. So you for real a therapist.
Yeah, stay scheduled. Stay booked and busy.
That's good. That's good. Good. But it's so good to see your beautiful face.
I know it's been since what, summertime of last year?
Yep.
Yeah.
Because we were going to do it sooner than that. But like you said, you were so booked and busy. I said, I want her because you already know, like I fell in love with you when we first did it. And I was just saying how proud I am of you as a older woman and seeing you as a young woman doing your thing in this therapy world. I think it's so amazing. So let's just talk. So for those that don't know, Brea is a mental health therapist, licensed professional counselor, and she's certified in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Texas. And she works primarily with children. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So got my license in Pittsburgh, worked there for a bit, worked in the LGBT community for a bit, worked in the hospital. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because the way I have my phone set up. But okay, so I worked in the hospital for a bit, decided I wasn't very happy. So I moved to Texas, got licensed here. Now I work in foster care, but I also work in a private practice, which I'm in my office right now. And I work with older adults, as old as maybe 50s, 60s. I work with young adults, I work with teens, and I work with like little kids. So my youngest client is 5 right now, and they're twins, and we do play therapy.
Wow.
Wow. All of that stuff right now.
Wow. So how do you what's the difference between the adults and the children? Who gives you the most trouble? I know the answer.
Oh, God. The adults. They give me the most issues. The kids are real straightforward. And kids are fun. They just want to play, and they want someone to listen to them.
Right.
Adults will do a bit more with certain things, or they don't like something you say, so you kind of have to be on your P's and Q's with certain things.
Yeah, they're kind of stuck in their ways, right?
They can be.
Kids are for it. So I just wanted to just take a moment. I know you're busy, so we'll just run about 45 minutes, but I just appreciate you taking the time to come on Tea and Conversations. Where's your cup? Where's your cup?
Here, and it has my name, everything.
Oh, so cute. And I was gifted this with my face. I said, people probably like, oh, she's vain, but I was gifted this.
I was gifted this too for my birthday. Same thing.
Counselor. Oh, that's so cute. Mm-hmm. What does it say? What your name means? What does that say on the back?
It says, because badass miracle worker isn't an official job title.
Hey, I love that. So my show, Tea and Conversations, often I say that I got drinking tea from my grandmothers and my mother. And just like healthy conversation is one and the same. When you're thinking about tea, it's healing and it's soothing. And so is the conversations that we have. So that's why it's named that. You mind if we just jump right in?
Oh, we can jump right in. I'm ready.
Okay. So many people now are acutely aware of their mental health. And I'm so glad that so many people are now talking about protecting and maintaining a good mental health space. Years ago, people weren't talking about that stuff openly. How does it feel as a therapist to hear people say, you know what, I need to protect my mental health. I need to worry about my mental health. How does that make you feel when people are really cognizant of it?
It makes me feel really excited, especially if I'm able to help teach people that, they have the right to protect their space and they don't owe anybody, their space or to overextend themselves, right? So for me, short answer, honestly, it's just really exciting because I like to see people be able to put themselves first and not by it as being selfish or not being part of the team or their family, because I think people try to guilt you for choosing yourself. So exciting.
But you know what? That's so true because people will try to make you feel like if you're choosing that first, then you are being selfish. And I think that's a little bit of gaslighting going on with that.
Yeah, I definitely think that it can be a form of gaslighting, right? But I always teach my people that, hey, not to be rude, but you don't owe anybody anything. And,
that's right.
can't lay your life down and live your life for other people. So you can gently tell them like, hey, I can do this, but I can't do that. And that's
Yeah.
okay. That's where boundaries comes in, right? And being
Yeah.
able to boundaries and not identify with being responsible for their reaction. You can
Yeah.
say something, but you're not responsible for how they react. If they want to have a fit, that's going to be on them.
Yeah, I agree. And I like the way you said gently tell them something. And you mentioned boundaries. I'm going to talk about that a little later. But I talked about gaslighting and, you know, on my TikTok and my platforms, I often talk about that. Can you explain to people who don't know what gaslighting is?
Okay, so gaslighting is a form of communication in which someone tries to distort your reality or tell you that something isn't happening or place blame on you. So a person that gaslights you is never accountable. It's always you. You're the problem and you are the reason for the behavior. So those are some examples of how someone could gaslight you.
Yeah. And because now, like I said, people are acutely aware of what's happening. You know, people are running around using taglines and using psychology terms and all of that because they are aware. And it makes me so happy that people are putting themselves first and they are setting boundaries. On your IG page, you talked about the difference between anxiety and panic attacks, anxiety attacks, excuse me, and panic attacks. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so an anxiety attack is more so like it has a rooted reason. Like if I'm anxious
Hmm.
about crowds, that means I have social anxiety. So I know where the anxiety is, I know what it pertains to, and I probably can predict that I'm going to get anxious if there's a certain amount of people in my space. A panic
Yeah.
attack come out of nowhere, and they are a buildup of probably different anxieties around you that you're not really observing. So you could
Yeah.
be sitting here like me and you were talking, and I could have a panic attack.
Yeah.
And I probably would say I have no idea why I'm having it. There's probably a root somewhere, but in the moment, it's really hard to gauge where it's
Hmm.
coming from. And panic attacks feel like heart attacks. I've had a client have a panic attack in my office, and she literally thought she was having a heart attack. And I had to calm her down and say, it's a panic attack. Breathe through it, and she was fine. I still call the, the emergency line because that's what protocol is. But it turns out that was
Yeah.
an attack. So those are the big differences between those two.
So she thought that she was having a heart attack, and oftentimes I've heard people who have had panic attacks think just that. You know, they're
Hmm?
having a heart attack because it feels so painful, or what they think a heart attack should feel like. Well, how is that when someone's having that in front of you? Was that the first time, or it's happened often as a therapist?
Yeah, that moment I'm talking about was my first time, but I have had clients do that. That's why I'm honestly with trauma work. We were talking about trauma. That is why I'm
Hmm.
so on like knowing when you're done having a conversation around trauma or like
Yeah.
your coping mechanisms. Like I don't start trauma work until you
Yeah.
understand like what your triggers are and what your coping strategies are to calm down. In that moment, she had them, but I don't think she was attending to her body the way she needed to in that moment. So she started
Yeah.
panicking.
Yeah.
So that was quite an experience. It was a bit scary, but you can't freak out because if they're like, upset and then you get upset, now you're
Yeah.
both, in a space of upset. So
Yeah.
and to
But you're
really
talking about coping mechanisms, and a lot of people don't have coping mechanisms. They don't know how to cope, so they respond in different ways that aren't healthy. What are some coping mechanisms you would? And I talked to a client today. You know, as a life coach, I talked to a client today, and she said that it's hard for her to come down once she gets up there. What are some coping mechanisms that you could help someone with who may have a temper or who is all the way on 10, how to
Mhm.
get back down?
So you're not really able to use coping mechanisms unless you know how to body map. Have you ever heard of body?
Can you explain that to everyone?
So
That's good.
body
That's good.
is when you're able to identify like what's happening in your body in the moment. So say I get anxious, that happens for me in my stomach. So I know if I'm anxious about something, it's going to happen in my stomach, and I notice it before it gets to a 7. When you're at a 7, you're not going to be able to come down unless you're really in tune with it at a 5. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's
Um,
deep.
so it's really hard. I can teach somebody coping mechanisms all day, but if they don't know how to tune into their body, it doesn't matter. They're going to freak out each time because they're not attuned into what's happening around them and what's causing it. So they're re-triggering themselves essentially over and over again.
So that, I mean, oh, that really makes a lot of sense. And So how does someone begin to tell, like, some of the signs if they're trying to just figure out their body? You said it starts in your stomach and but once you get to a 7, it's hard to come back down. But when you're at a 5, you can kind of maintain it. So how can someone kind of gauge that? Or is it something that they have to do first or understand first before they're able to gauge it?
So what I do with my clients, I do a ladder. It's like a thermometer. So it looks like a thermometer. So I do like, okay, when you're at a 1, like what triggers you? We write that down. Okay, when you're at a 5, what triggers you? So it's not going to always be that clean. But usually I do go through like, okay, what triggers you at these certain numbers? And then I
Mm-hmm.
also take them through situations and say, okay, what did you feel in your body in that moment? And I try to get them to understand what their first signal is so they can fully understand like what happens first. Like for me, it's always my stomach. But the next thing that happens to me is I get really hot. Like if I'm mad, I'm gonna get hot. But that's my second signal. My first signal
Mm-hmm.
is my stomach. So if I know my first signal, I'm able to identify like, okay, let me get this now. Because if it goes
Mm-hmm.
to getting hot, I'm
Yeah.
probably down and I might get impulsive.
So really what you're saying is really start to understand and know your body and understand your trigger points and what is affecting you to see if you have a pattern maybe, and learn how to adjust it. So it's really like getting to know you
Yeah.
and what does that, and that can help because so many people don't know or don't understand when the same repetitive things begin to happen.
Yeah, and
So
I
it,
think a lot of people say like, oh, I just have anger issues. No, you're not self-regulated and you're not regulating yourself.
mm,
You're in control of that. No one's in control of that but you. And until you get
mm,
out of it, you're gonna keep having anger issues, right?
mm. Yeah, that's good. And that you're definitely helping somebody because I'm thinking about somebody right now. Hopefully they'll be able to see this later. So this right now is Tea and Conversations if you're just tuning in, and it'll also be available on my YouTube channel, which is Kendell Lenice. And while you're over at the YouTube channel, subscribe and look for Brea's interview on season 1 of Kendell Lenice Live, the interview series. She was amazing on there. So you can catch her on there too, as we talked about some different things. All right. So I was on your Instagram page. I love your Instagram page. And you said something. I was like, yes, Brea, you say choose peace over being popping. And I love that. Can you go further into that for those that don't understand what you meant? I got it. But those that don't understand what you meant, I love that I was like, yes, I love that.
So I think a lot of people choose popularity over like their peace, right? So they do things that are outside of their comfort zone or outside of their budget. They just do everything to appease other people. So for me,
Mm-hmm.
what comes to my mind is like, I'd rather be peaceful than be popular and be popping and be in everybody's face and not really choosing myself. So to me, that's like the short end of what I meant by that. But that comes to mind was just knowing certain people and them just seem like they're overextending themselves and it's causing them so much harm. But on Instagram, it looks like, oh, you just got the best life. But in real life,
Yep.
you're not. You're
It's
doing things
falling
for
apart. Right.
admiration. Yeah, you're doing things for the wrong reasons in my eyes.
I love that. See, and the reason why it resonated to me because my latest book is my personal journey of peace. And it's a
Mm-hmm.
guided journal, and I'm
Ooh.
all for that. Yep, it's so good, Bria. And I'm not just saying that because I wrote it. It's 100. It's really really thick, and it makes people do their self work because so many people want to be in a peaceful place, but they don't know how to get there, and they don't know how to recognize certain things in them, so it kind of guides them through. So when I saw that, because I'm big on the peace element and trying to have people find that place of peace, because sometimes some of the things can be eliminated, or you can get to your mental health can be regulated in many different ways if you kind of understand that. So you're younger than I am, but sometimes your generation is getting it before my generation, because a lot of people in my generation are stuck in their ways. I don't need no help. I'm fine. I've been doing it for this long, where
Yep.
your generation is starting off with, you know what? I got a boundary right here. Don't cross it. I'm saying no. I can't right now. And you're taking ownership of who you are. Do you find that when you're dealing with younger people, and even in your age bracket, that they have a better understanding, and then sometimes the older generation might be like, oh, I'm good, I got this, and they're falling apart?
Yeah, I think so. I think it just comes with, your parents who you're raised by a certain generation, then you're born. And, back in the day, people didn't really like think mental health was a thing, or they felt you were
Yeah.
being a, or they were coddling you. Nowadays it's everywhere. Social media is a thing. I do think I found some clients that I've had to correct them on, the boundaries, because they could be real rigid or porous, or,
Mm-hmm.
they say protecting their peace, but really that is honestly selfishness. So I think I've
Yeah.
had certain people, but I do think that this generation is a bit more open when it comes to being healthy and not
Yeah.
just hiding, and sucking it up, because that's not going to help anyone.
Right. And I love that. And I love that about the space we're in now as a whole is, people are with social media, people are promoting mental health. People are like you're a therapist and you're talking about mental health and you're, putting things on your page. And I love the fact that people on social media in generally are open to saying, hey, I go to therapy. Hey,
Yeah.
I got a therapist. Me and
Hmm.
my therapist talked about that. And I'm gonna tell you, Brea, when I was growing up and maybe when I was your age, nobody was talking about that. Not saying they weren't going. They just weren't open because it was almost shameful.
Yeah, like something's
You
wrong.
know?
Yep.
Yeah. And because back in the day, it'd be like, oh, they're crazy or something's wrong. And you'll still hear people say that. Talk about the freedom it gives a person to just ask for help or seek help or go to, a counselor, therapist, life coach, anybody for help. Talk
Yeah,
about that freedom.
I think it's hard to put into words, but I think it's definitely a feeling. And I've watched my clients go from feeling like they can't be themselves to being like authentically them. And it's just such a happy feeling, not even because like I help, but just to see that process and see someone open up and really live in their truth is such a beautiful thing. But yeah, like you said, there's a lot of freedom, only word I really can use, but I think it's more of a feeling. And you don't
Yeah,
feel it until you experience it and you let yourself experience it and understand that like there's no one on this planet that doesn't need help. There's no one on this planet that's not inspired by other people. You know what I mean?
yeah,
We all need each other as a socialization. So thinking about therapy in that way could be helpful for those that it's very hard to ask for help or feel crazy because they need therapy.
yeah. That's well said. Well said. Thank you. Thank you for that. My Black Beauty Box talked about, she said that, it was shameful, and I'm just paraphrasing in my Black Beauty Box. If you're in here, if I'm wrong or you need to go further, let me know. But she's saying like in a family, it was almost shameful to go to therapy. And if you grew up that way, it was like something was wrong with you
Mm-hmm.
if you did that. And she had a question, but it disappeared. But that's what we were talking about a little earlier. How important is it to, it's thunder in here. I don't know if you guys can hear, but how important is it for families to talk about mental health from the little kids? Because you said you had a client today or before who was 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about how important it is for families to talk about mental health and to check in with one another about their mental health and maybe seek in therapy individually, but as a collective, as a family.
Yeah, so I will say the first word that comes to my mind is very validating. It's very validating to know that you don't have to be strong all the time and that you can have someone to talk with and that you can have someone that you can, have a mental health check in with. The 5-year-olds that
Yeah.
um, it's just evident in their behavior that there are some things that they were taught and there's some things that they weren't. And
Yeah.
they're regulated right now. So I'm helping them with that. So if you have little kids
Yeah.
that I'm at right now and they're doing better behaviorally after a few months, imagine like little adults growing up and not and being emotionally stunted, but trying to do adult things. Right? That's really hard.
Arrested development.
Yeah, so that's being stunted, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you're not learning how to cope or how to be emotionally in tune with yourself. So emotionally, you're stunted. That means that maybe your relationships or your friendships, they're going to be a little harder, or even just getting to know yourself on that level, it's going to be a little harder for you. So I'm not saying that you're just stuck forever and that's just it, but I'm just trying to make a point that it's very important, because
Yeah.
you don't need it, and you could just do physical work and other things, but it's going to come back around because if you
Yeah.
don't out, it's gonna come out. It's gonna come out more
Yeah.
than you want it to, and that's gonna be a little worse for you in some ways.
Yeah. Because I mean, I know adults now that are in their 50s, they're still stunted. You know what I mean? That still can't get past that. And they still think nothing is wrong. Everybody looking at them like something is wrong and not crazy, but you need to talk to someone. And so many people think, well, I'm good. And they're really not good. They're falling apart, and it's showing up at their job. It's showing up at the family reunion. It's
Mm-hmm.
showing up at events where it's not tasteful to show up, meaning it's just exploding. It's coming out, and they can't see it. What would you tell that person who says, okay, they think I need therapy, but I think I'm fine? What would you
I
tell?
would explore with them their idea of therapy. I have a lot of people that think being in therapy means you're crazy, or there's so many issues. Like, I definitely have friends that are like, well, there's nothing wrong with me, so I don't need therapy. He is like, you can go to therapy when you feel completely fine, but it's not bad to just check in and to be mindful of, like, you know, things that maybe you're suppressing. I do think a lot of older adults also have trauma that they don't identify as trauma, and I think a lot of people don't understand that trauma changes your brain. So your brain is not normal, like a person that has not, you
I'm
know.
glad you're saying that.
Yeah, it's not normal regarding a lot of people that have no trauma. So I don't think they get that. So I think it's really hard for them to process that therapy could help, because, like, what's happening, but it is, well, it's not, because it's affecting different facets of your life, and people are telling you that it's affecting their relationship with you.
But that's huge. That's huge what you said. And I want people to catch that, whether you're watching live or you catch the replay on Instagram or my YouTube channel. That is so important. Like, people don't realize that trauma changes the brain. Thank you. Hey, Danielle. Thank you for watching. And that's just what I was getting ready to say. Exactly what Danielle just repeated. Trauma changes the brain. And I don't think people understand that. In therapy, there's the little T and the big T. Can you tell our viewers the difference so they can understand what that is? So when they start hearing things like this, they can catch what's being said.
Okay, so big T with, like, being physically, sexually abused, things of that sort. Also
The
can be,
T for trauma.
yeah, big T. So big T and little T. The differences between those is, like, there's big trauma, where it's like, you know, people identify that as, like, physical trauma, what's it called, sexual trauma, getting kidnapped, things of that sort. Little T could be like losing a friendship, having a break, right? And just because we call it little T doesn't mean it doesn't have an effect on you. It
Because
has
that affects you. Yeah.
effect. We want to identify that, like, you know, that's real. It's not something to take lightly, and it is something to work through in the process, and it can change the trajectory of, like, your relationships in the past. Say if you have a little T, you have a breakup, it can cause damage if you don't work through it in a proper manner.
Yeah. You know what? It's so right. And when you just said, because I talk about the big T's and the little T's all the time, but you just use an example of like, even with a friendship. And I'll just tell everyone real quick. I mean, I had a friend and we were super, super tight and nothing happened. And she was older than I was, and we were friends. And I remember this like it was yesterday. I was turning 35. Now I'll be 50 in 2 weeks. So that shows you how long ago that was. And I'm talking about it right now. I remember I was 34. I was getting ready to turn 35, and she was already 50 or about to turn 50. And I remember her always telling me after a while, like, this was a good friend, right? And I remember her telling me that, okay, yeah, you're still young. You know, you're 35. I'm about to be 50. And I almost felt like she was holding it against me that I was younger, and kind of, I don't want to say jealous, but the fact that I was still younger and she was turning 50. Fast forward to what you're saying. She just kind of ended our friendship, or I just didn't hear from her anymore. I remember she was supposed to come to my 35th birthday. She never came. I tried to reach out. I never talked to her again. And you just said that with small T's, like, that does affect you, especially when it hasn't been resolved and you don't know why. You get what I'm saying? You can speculate why. And so I'm glad that you said that, because there are probably a lot of people out there. Calvin says, thank you. Losing friendships can be slightly traumatic. It really can, especially, like I said, if you don't know why. So I'm glad that you said that, because I'm not the only one, or Calvin or whoever else isn't the only one that something like that's happened. And when we talk about trauma, that's why I wanted you to talk about the big T and the little T, because people don't realize that, you know, those are traumatic experiences also. All right. So you talk about me as a meditation practitioner, you loving yoga. You love yoga, and I watch you doing your thing with yoga. Tell people how yoga and meditation can help your mental health.
Okay, so if you break it down a little bit more like scientifically, clearly I'm not a doctor, but I do my research and I try to tell my clients this. So the benefits of yoga when it comes to movement in your body is that there's certain movements that release certain like hormones in your body. So certain
Yeah.
movements release cortisol, or it can increase serotonin, right? Just like working out. So meditation is really good for that, especially with the fact that we store stress in certain parts of our body. So you need to be able to get that out. And sometimes just running is not what needs to happen. You really need to like focus on that area in which you hold stress. Like I hold stress in my shoulders when I get really overwhelmed. So me doing different side stretches or doing like child's pose, those are really helpful for me to be able to, you know, release that. So for as far as like the movement of yoga, that's really helpful. The mindfulness piece is just being able to sit still with your mind. I was watching this Oprah interview, and she was talking about how if she could make a rule, she would make a rule that everybody has to like sit still for 20 minutes out their day every day. And that's what
I love
meditation
that.
is, sitting still so you can get in tune with yourself. Not sitting still so you can just ruminate, but sitting still so you can understand what you're thinking, what's going on with you, checking in with yourself. Like I just like meditation is so powerful. And I think people forget that it's a practice. It's not something you just do one day and you're like, I'm better. It's something you have to intentionally do. And there's different types of meditation, right?
Yep.
So it depends what
Yep.
you need. Meditation for trauma,
Yep.
anxiety, depression, you
Yep.
know, lots of different things. So just remembering that it's not a one size fits all, but also that there's other methods that you can use to meditate, you know, if you want to do
Mm-hmm.
it in a different manner.
And thank you for saying that, because, as a meditation practitioner, everything that you said, yep, I understand it, I know it, and then trying to deliver it to someone else to let them know. So as a therapist, I'm glad that you said that, because it's about using all the tools in the toolbox to help you to help your whole tempo and getting to a healthy place and understanding yourself and knowing who you are. And I love the fact that you're talking about, where you hold stress, and it's in your shoulders. Mine too, by the way. And I love the fact that you said when you're getting anxiety, you feel like you're, getting um, upset or angry, it starts in your stomach. I love the fact that you're saying these things so people can get to understand their bodies that way and really pay attention to where you hold it. And did you know these things before you were a therapist? Is this something that you're beginning to? Because you're a young.
Okay. I can't hear you.
Been doing, you've known since you were young.
Okay, I'm sorry, you
Can
froze
you
for
hear
a second.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Um, this is something
Yes,
I
someone
learned
was trying to call.
Oh, this is something I learned when I was in grad school. So I didn't even learn this in college. Like, I wasn't
Hmm.
taught this when I was a kid. I feel like your parent can only teach you what they know, right? And I think my parents did an amazing job raising me, but just understand your parent is not going to teach you everything. The world's going to teach you some things. So I learned these things when I was in grad school, and it was a game changer because I didn't even understand. Like, I understood more why I was like snapping out at people, or like why I would
Hmm.
act a certain way, or why certain things bothered me. Like, I really couldn't tell you why, but I knew it bothered me.
Yeah,
So grad school was a really big facilitator in helping me identify more of me. So that was helpful.
I love that. I love that. So everyone in social media, you're scrolling all day. At what point would you tell someone to fall back, chill from the social media? What is a healthy amount of hours for a person to be on social media? Because now some people are scrolling and scrolling and scrolling all day. What's a healthy amount of hours?
So I don't have a healthy amount of hours. I think it depends on the person. I would definitely say
Hmm.
more than 6 hours is probably not healthy for you.
More than how
But
many?
I would say more than 6 hours a day, I would
Hmm.
say is probably not healthy for you. But I think it depends. Some people like they live their life on social media in regards to like
Hmm.
how they make money.
Hmm.
I know I couldn't control that, but I think it starts to consume you. You start comparing yourself to other people, and you feel badly about your life. I think it's time to take a break. I've taken several breaks from social media for those reasons,
Hmm.
and it's been so helpful every time. I also think that sometimes you don't have to get off of social media, but you might have to like cleanse your page in regards to what you're seeing. If you're seeing this model that's 120 and you're 150 and you can't get that out your mind, it's time to unfollow that model and time to follow people that more so look like you and that have the qualities that you have.
I just love you, Brea. I do. I always tell you that, but I do, because you're so informed and you're so smart. And I'm going to say it. I'm going to tell everybody. Somebody jumped in my DMs for Brea, and I said, you fine when somebody jumps in someone else's DMs trying to holler at you. But I also told the person, I said, and she's smart too. So it's not just the fineness. She's smart and intelligent, and she knows what she's talking about in this field. All right. So someone's child, let me give you an example. Someone's child is overwhelmed with this virtual school, virtual teaching. The parent is just as overwhelmed. What kind of advice would you give them who are just, trying to figure out this whole virtual world? And I hear a lot of parents are stressed out. A lot of kids are stressed out. What kind of advice and what kind of technique or something that you could tell them to kind of soothe it out a little bit?
It's so funny you said that, because I did an article. It was like Houston Family Magazine. I did an article for them with a colleague about this exact topic. And it was more so about like the parent finding resources, like asking the teachers or whomever is in charge, like if there's other resources when it comes to like is this parent stressed out because like they have to work as well, or they're just not being able to get organized or get their kid to work? Like, what's their predominant issue?
Because before the pandemic first started, they were there, and that was the stress trying to teach them. And then now they went back to work, and they still have to check on the children, and sometimes they're stressed out and they're not sleeping. She doesn't know whether she wants to say, okay, you can have an off day today, or they're just all stressed out when it comes to that virtual learning. And I hear a lot of parents are struggling with that.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that I've been telling my clients that have children is to like lean on the school, like ask for resources, make sure that your kids having issues in school, make sure they have a tutor, or make sure they're a part of a program where someone works with them, or work with another family member to come in and check on them that maybe doesn't work the same hours as you. So I would say pulling on your support system is probably the biggest thing, but you're not going to be able to micromanage your kid. I would say get your kids resources if you feel like they're falling off or they're not the type of kid that can do work by themselves. Like me, when I was in school, leave me alone. I do it myself. But
Right.
you know what I'm saying? Like some kids aren't like that. So being able to identify like what kind of kids you have and what needs are and go from there. But you kind of put the cart before the horse if you're just immediately stressed out and you're trying to scramble. You can't think clearly if you're stressed out. So the first thing I would say is identify what the kids' needs are, and then identify what resources are there for you to be able to help.
Yeah. And everybody's enjoying the conversation. If you have questions for Brea, definitely type them in here or put them in the question box. And before we end this interview, she'll be able to answer some of your questions. Calvin says when we were talking about friendships, he had tons of situations like that where he was left wondering. So we were talking about friendships. So let's go into that a little further. How can someone manage their emotions and feelings when they are uncertain, maybe about a friendship, maybe about a family member, maybe about a relationship? How can they soothe themselves at some point? Because, most people want closure in the answer. So how can they, if they never get it or they're just having trouble moving forward, what would you tell them?
I probably would tell them, like I would say, seek therapy, but I would say if you're not able to have a conversation with that friend and like receive closure, which closure is not always necessary for certain relationships.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, I would definitely say like I've had clients write letters to the person and not send it to them and like just verbalize it. I've had people just mourn and be sad. Like sometimes you can't just buck up. Sometimes you're sad. I've had friendships that have ended that I'm like sad because I didn't expect that, and I had to mourn it. Part of my process. So I would probably tell them if they weren't seeking therapy, like let's sit in your process. You'll move past it. Emotions are not forever, but it is important to mourn that friendship if that was important to you, and doesn't make you any less to do so.
Emotions are not forever.
Yeah, they pass.
In the process. I love that. Why do people think emotions are forever? Like, tell them that is so powerful. It's so simple, but so powerful, Brea. why do you think people think emotions are forever and they can't come out of that emotion they're in? Because so many people feel like that.
I think because it feels so intense and it feels like it's not going to end. If you think about it, humans were more so socialized to seek pleasure and avoid pain. So if we are sitting in a place like this is painful, it just feels like it's going to be there forever. But again, that's why self-soothing is so important. For me, if I have an intense emotion or I'm annoyed, I'm like, okay, this is going to pass. I might take a nap or I might do what I need to do. But I already have that mindset. But you understand that I've been thinking like that since I was 22 years old. I'm 28.
Whew.
So like, takes time to be able to build that skill. And I've definitely gone through processes where I'm like, this doesn't work. I've been doing this for years, but you got to give yourself time and you got to keep reframing your thoughts to understand that it will pass because it always does.
Let me tell you something. And I tell people this, you know, I've been doing what I've been doing for over 20 plus years. But I said, if I knew what I knew now 30 years ago, girl, if I knew what I knew now at 28, like, you know, I would be a beast. I can't wait to see you at 40 and 50 because you get it so early. Like you said, you've been doing this and at this since 22. So people might look at you and be like, oh, okay, she's 28. She looks young. What does she know? And you hear it right here. She knows what she's talking about. Do you get that a lot because you look young and you are young? People don't take you seriously. And I know we talked about that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, people definitely have done that to me. And also because I'm not like a glitz and glam type person. Like I would say I wear makeup. As you see, ponytail, glasses, and no makeup. Like I don't.
It's still beautiful.
About proving myself because I feel like, you know, I don't know everything, but I feel like I'm intelligent. But I have had people question that. And, you know, it reminds me of a TikTok. Like, there's the door. Like,
right. And then doing the little dance out the door.
Right. Take it, you keep it. I can't control your perception or what you identify as what professional or what looks like is knowledgeable. But most of my clients, I haven't run into that in the last couple of years. Most of my clients stick with me. And if they don't, nothing I can do about it. I can't control it.
Right. Because you have confidence in your abilities and you know what you know and you're educated in that area. So I would stick with you too because the age doesn't matter. The knowledge matters. I have Mundley Yvonne says so true. Oprah would say aha moments. I'm learning. Danielle says we have to realize that we are not alone. There is an audience waiting for us to show up. We need to normalize asking for help. Absolutely. Yep. I say that all the time. And Les Brown, motivational speaker, this is one of my favorite quotes. I say it all the time. Ask for help because not because you're weak, but because you want to remain strong. And and that's preventative. You know, when we talk about preventative health and preventative doctor's appointments, we make those, right? When we go get checkups, nothing's wrong, but we want to prevent something in the future. You need to do that for your mental health as well. You know, seeking a therapist, like Brea said earlier, even if nothing is wrong, it's so good to, even when, because I have a therapist and she's like, girl, you know so much, like you really don't. But it's like, I don't know everything. And because I am in the field where I am, where people come to me, I need a place where I can just release and just talk.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And talk it out, right? To an unbiased person to just talk it out. So it's so funny because my therapist and I, we laugh because she's like, okay, so we do like the last, and it works for us. You know, some people might not say, but the last 15 minutes, I'll allow her to vent. Because, you know, and that's just, you know, of course, therapy doesn't always work that way, but because I do what I do and she does what she does, it works. And what I'm trying to say is we all need somebody.
Yeah, we definitely all need somebody. And I always tell my clients and people, I have a therapist, you know, and I talk with her about once a month about that are transpiring. Sometimes I feel like I it, but at the end of the day, I always feel replenished and replenished. Just being able to sit there in my own space and work through my thoughts and not have to put other people's thoughts ahead of mine, because that is part of my job, is making sure that my clients are attended to, you know, and I'm not, so you got to be number one at some point in your life. And therapy for me is that's my space to be like, this is about me and that's okay. And I like this.
Absolutely. And you can't pour from an empty cup. And people don't realize that. People don't realize therapists have therapists. You know, when you die, you know, you're not going to bury yourself. So even if you're an undertaker or owner of a funeral home, you're going to need somebody to help you. A doctor needs a doctor. And
Mm-hmm.
we have to normalize that. When people are in professional fields, they're like, oh, well, what's wrong with you if you have it? You know, or you have a therapist. Is something wrong with you? Or, you know, I don't want to go to a therapist who has a therapist. That's ridiculous. I've heard people say silly stuff like that. And we have to know that we're all human at the end of the day. And these are professions. But it doesn't mean that you're perfect, right?
Yeah, I make sure I let my clients know that, and not like we're on the same playing field, because there is a professionalism in my space and my office.
Exactly.
But also just identifying that I'm human and I'm not here to judge you, but I am here to tell you things that you may not want to hear in a nice manner. So yeah, I definitely try to set that boundary, but not put myself on a pedestal, because I've never believed in that. I've always believed in like person-centered type of thing. So that's what I do, and it works for my clients and the clientele that sees me.
I love that. And if you are in Ohio, Pennsylvania, or Texas, Brea is certified in all three of those states. I want to talk quickly before we end about girlchinup.com.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Okay. So I have not been on it as much. It's only because, remember when I last talked to you, I had 3 jobs, right? So then, you know what, I can't have 3 jobs. I'm exhausted. So then I work 2 jobs now. So I haven't had as much time to invest in writing my articles, but it's something that's still a passion of mine that I want to get back into. It just hasn't been as consistent as I would like it to be because of like my schedule, and I work. So it's kind of hard sometimes to also work on a day that you have off.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's about writing what, so they can understand when you do go back to it. What are you writing about, so they can know? Yeah.
It's just about like it's like encouraging posts. I write about depression. I've written about like morning routines. I think I made a music playlist on there one time, like to set your mood right in the morning. Just different thoughts that honestly I've had as a person and relating it to my clients. So them being able to have confidence and know that we're all human, right?
Yeah.
And just because, you know, people say that therapists and doctors and engineer, whomever, keep going up the totem pole or on this pedestal, doesn't mean that's really true. We all experience feelings. We just all deal with them in a different manner. So that's what my typically about.
I love that. Last question before we get out of here, and definitely you have to come back. You know, I always want you to come back because you touch people and you inspire people, and everyone on here is inspired in their touch and they're loving the conversation. That's just the people who are on here live. So I know you're going to affect lives when people rewatch this. I definitely got to have you back. But what is the last thing that you would tell someone who may be afraid of therapy or embarrassed to even admit that they want to go to therapy?
I would say, you know, you don't have to tell anybody if that's what you decide to do, right? There's ways around that, right? Paying out of pocket. You don't just have to go through insurance. But I would say just take a step of faith and just take a chance on yourself, right? If you try it one time and you don't like it, you don't have to ever go back. But I think it is, I think it'd be a mistake not to try if you really feel like it's. And it could be like you don't want to go to therapy. Maybe you want a life coach, right? Maybe you want to go a different route. But I try something to improve your well-being and who you want to be in your future.
I love that. Ask for help. Wherever help is, ask for that. Like Brea said, whether it's a therapist, a counselor, a life coach, ask for help. I had a free consultation today and I was so happy. The lady found me on TikTok. And I was, yes, right. And she had a consultation and, you know, she loved it. And that's the first thing I told her. I said, I just appreciate you putting yourself first, even if, you know, we don't even go past this conversation. I'm just proud that you put yourself first. And you do that often, Brea. You are an example of what you speak, because you said sometimes you have to fall back off social media. You know that you can't do several jobs. You see a therapist. So I'm going to tell you the same thing. Thank you for putting yourself first. And thank you for using your platform to inspire, uplift, and encourage on social media. And also just, I'm proud of you. Like a mom, I am really proud of you. You're doing your thing. Keep doing it. Keep shining, girl.
I'm trying. Thank you. I appreciate that so much. I appreciate you having me come on. And I want you to send me a link to your book. I didn't know you had one. So I would love to it and support.
I will. I will. It's My Personal Journey of Peace, a 30-day guided journal. It's available on Amazon. So I'll definitely send you the link. Everybody, this is therapist, Brea. Please follow her at therapy with _ BRREEAA. It's pinned right here. You'll love her page and you'll love her. And if you're interested, I'm not sure if she has any room for clients, but definitely reach out to her quickly. How can they get in touch with you outside of Instagram?
So typically people just DM me, and if I'm available to take clientele, I'll tell them my information. But if I'm not, I'll try to give them just different referrals. So people typically DM me, and I'll give them the number to my private practice, staff, and then they will take care of it. Yep.
All right. She is professional. She is booked and busy, and she will help you. You heard on here. She gave some amazing advice, and she dropped the knowledge and dropped some gems for you. This is Tea and Conversation. Hold your cup up. Hold your Brea cup up. Thank you, everybody. Brea, thank you so much for taking the moment right out of your session to sit with me. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Yes, this is Brea, everyone. Wasn't she amazing? Let her know what you think. Also, this will be available still on my IG page and also my YouTube channel, Kendell Lenice. So make sure you subscribe and you'll see this over here. Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching. Bye.